Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. La ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is the first thing that a revert Muslim says when they enter the deen. And this is the first pillar of Islam. And it translates to, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is a slave and messenger. I bear witness to that. We have a surah in the Quran, Surah Al-Ikhlas. It's one of the ones that I think a lot of us take for granted. It's a very short surah, 3 or 4 ayahs, and it just talks about how Allah is the only God, basically. I'm not going to get into the full tafsir of the surah, but it's one of those ones that we take for granted, but actually, when we read it, it's worth a third of the whole Quran. So if we read it 3 times, that's the whole Quran. And one of the most famous sayings in our history was from Sayyidina Bilal, when he kept saying Ahadun Ahad when he was being abused by the Quraysh. I think everyone knows that. Ahadun Ahad. One God, one God. And lastly, as we know from the trivia night 2 days ago, the one sin that Allah will not forgive is shirk, or associating another deity or entity or person on the same level as Him. All of this points to the fact that we as Muslims believe that Allah is Al-Wahid Al-Ahad, the only one. And as Muslims, it is our job to remember this and to uphold this. Because as I've said, the Shahada is the first pillar for us Muslims, and it's the first thing that any new revert says. That signifies its importance. Surah Al-Ikhlas, worth a third of the whole Quran, signifies its importance. And those two, the surah and the statement, they're both very simple things, right? They're very easy to say, but I don't think they're that easy to understand or fully appreciate. And I think that we as an ummah, we need to do better about that, right? So going back to the shirk thing for a little bit, there's multiple levels of shirk. And I'm not a sheikh, I'm not going to get into all the levels. But something that strikes me as either very close to shirk, if not on a very low level of shirk, is when we assume that somebody other than Allah is responsible for our rizq, is responsible for our success or our failure or anything that we do. Right? So we need to remember that, no, it's not our boss that gives us the money that we need to keep our families afloat. It's not anyone or anything that grants you the success in this life. What grants you the success is Allah. The entity that gives you the money and the success is Allah. And to think otherwise is, I think, dancing very close to shirk. And if we can't get close to zina, why should we get close to shirk, the one sin that Allah won't forgive, right? So the thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is how to appreciate Allah being Al-Wahid Al-Ahad. And with Ramadan being the month of Quran, I think that what's very important to remember here is that Al-Quran is Allah talking directly to us. And I don't know, I'm not going to speak for everyone here, but me personally, I feel like we need to do better about both reading the Quran and understanding the Quran. Because a lot of the times when we read the Quran, we just read it, right? We're just ticking off a box on our to-do list and then we're moving on. But do we really understand what the Quran says? Are we really trying to get to know our Creator? Allah is the only one that has created us. He's the only one that has decided our destinies. He's the only one that we can actually say, we can talk to through our salahs 5 times a day. He's the only one that, He is the only one that we can talk to and things will change. He is the only one that can give us validation, right? When I signed up to do this Khaterah, I didn't do it with the intention of winning your guys' hearts. You guys are all very important to me. I love this community, but I did this to please Allah. I wanted to draw light on the fact that we don't appreciate Allah the way we should. And sometimes I don't think we fear Allah the way we should either. And that's something that's very important and something that needs to change. So in the holy month of Ramadan, when we read the Quran, and we're supposed to read the Quran every day, but in Ramadan especially, there's a very good way to ensure that we read the whole Quran, and that's to read 5 pages before or after each salah. And that will hopefully get us to every single juz read. And obviously we go to the Tarawih where we're supposed to reach that goal too. And we need to understand what Allah tells us as well. Alright, so that sounds very easy, right? But in practice it's not. We all have lives, we all have motivations, we all have different things going on. And obviously outside of Ramadan, we have shaitan distracting us. So where do we get the motivation to read the Quran and to actually understand it? So I think we're all familiar with the stick and carrot method of motivation, right? The stick being punishment and the carrot being, the good thing that we get given. So in this case, I think the stick is, when we get judged for Yawm al-Qiyamah, we're each going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He's going to ask every single one of us, what did we do with our time? If we didn't get to know Allah, if we didn't read His Quran, if we didn't get to understand the Quran, He's going to ask us, what did you do with the time that I gave you? What did you decide was more important to you than getting to know me? I don't want to be in that position. I don't think any one of us does. But suppose you're not motivated by that. Suppose you work on a different level. Imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Him being pleased with you when you take a step towards Him and you try to get to know Him. Right? So I'll tell you guys something here from the dunya level. I work at my university and I'm friends with a couple of my bosses. And let me tell you, the perks I get from being friends with my bosses, it's pretty good, right? I get to talk to them about my schedule. I get to talk to them about, informal things, how work is going, stuff like that. And now imagine that you're friends with Allah. Allah that already loves us more than our parents ever will, but imagine you actually try to get to know Him and you're friends with Him. What will that do for you in your world? Imagine the barakah you will get from this, brothers and sisters, the blessing you will get from this when you become Allah's friend. Imagine how happy Allah is when we each take the time to get to know Him. Right? Allah being your friend, that opens up a lot of doors for you. Think about it that way, right? Carrot versus stick. It's up to you. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for listening.
Assalamu alaikum. All right, yesterday's trivia questions, I'm going to review them first and let's pick some winners. The first question was, which prophet was challenged by his people to show them Allah face to face? The options were Isa, Musa, and Ibrahim. The correct answer was Ibrahim? No, it was Musa. The second question, Adam's son learned how to bury his brother from ravens. I'm assuming that's supposed to say hippos and rhinos. And the correct answer was ravens. And the third question, what is the name of the book Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Sayyidina Dawood? And the options were Suhuf, Talmud, and Zabur. And the correct answer was Zabur. All right. Now, so you know that I'm not picking favorites. I'm doing it live. All right. B, A, C. First winner is Yusuf Darwish. I'll find you later. And second one is Ahmed Afifi. I'll find you later as well. Huh? No, it's not a threat, don't worry. He's already won one, so I'm gonna... Don't worry, he's not here today. No, it was not Mufawzi this time. And Maryam Saleh. All right. She won before? No, it was Reem. Was it? All right. I'll hand these out to you guys later, inshallah. And, oops. Today's questions are, the first one is, Sayyidina Lut is a blank of Prophet Ibrahim. The options were cousin, nephew, and son. Question 2, we have to fulfill our oaths. If one of us breaks their oath, the first reparation option is A, feeding 10 needy people, B, freeing a slave, and C, fasting 3 days. And the question 3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that Khamr, Maysir, Ansab, and Azlam are among the works of shaitan. What is Ansab? The options are intoxicants, gambling, and idolatrous practices. They're also on the TV, inshallah. Make sure you fill it out so you have a chance to win. Jazakumullah khair.